I think like a lot of people would have seen this quote on, I think it was on TikTok or Instagram, someone just posting a video being like, you know, be kind to your mom. It's her first time living this life too. And it's such a deep and crazy feeling and thought that, like, you know, we're obviously all doing this for the first time, and I would say final time. So I think, yeah, you just kind of have to make the most of it. So 3 years later, I'm back in Galway, in the home that we spent the last 10 years in. And what is so lovely is that I've always had these really, really nostalgic feelings and memories of like the happiest moments of like being at home. And the longer that I am away from home, it definitely makes me really, really excited to come back and do all the things that I love doing, like going for walks in the places that make me feel like the most like at peace and like magical, going to my favorite coffee shops, meeting up with friends that you never see. And that is all so exciting, but then the reality is that you obviously leave your hometowns for a reason, and as wonderful as it is spending time and living with family, then all of that stress kind of like compiles on you. And I love it so much because it is time that you wouldn't get with your family, because you're spending so much like time like cooking and like eating meals together and sitting down and watching TV, and it's all amazing. But I think at times it of course can get overwhelming. So the point of the pencil is I am just teaching myself to kind of overcome these feelings and to make the most of the moment, as opposed to creating moments and then looking back on the moments in the future being like, oh my god, that was amazing. Because I think that is my issue, that every single time that I'm in a situation, I think I struggle to see the beauty in what I'm doing at the time. Like looking back to the most recent summer that I had in London, I was living in an area that I just never liked, and I think I constantly had that like bad mindset of like, oh, I hate where I'm living, like it's just not the same as before, blah blah blah. Even though in between then I'm living with like incredible people, then my boyfriend lives with us and we're getting along so well, we're having like the nicest time, doing all these things in London that are like honestly like such incredible memories looking back, like restaurants that we went to, nights that we just went out like drinking, like sitting in the park, having movie nights, little routines that you create. And in that moment I was like, ugh, like god, I can't wait to like, you know, be at the next stage of my life, which technically is just wishing my life away. So I think everyone feels this way, and I think it's so normal. But I think what we probably have to work on is different ways that we can kind of like reel ourselves back into the moment, and I think just be a bit more thankful for what is happening at the time. And I think ways that I've been trying to do that myself, even though I don't do it as often as I probably should, is journaling. I think journaling is the first video that I ever made on YouTube, you know, which is so funny. And I looked so different back then, and it was in this house. So I'll insert a tiny little clip of me talking.
And so it is done. But what I would recommend with doing these, make sure that once you're finished, you're letting that go. You're believing that it's going to happen, and you're letting.
But yeah, it is so interesting. I've gone up and down with journaling. I think that first year that I did it religiously, and I think it was because I was in this phase where I'm in my hometown, that I've got all of these like negative but positive feelings associated to it, and I was really just trying to like feel my best. And it did, because looking back I'm like, oh my god, I love that year. Like that was like such a lovely, lovely memory for me. So I think I want to get back to that point where I'm consistently and like comfortably journaling, and it's not like a chore that I have to do. I want it to be something that like I genuinely just like, I know that it makes me feel better. And something that made me so happy at the time was I was posting a lot on Instagram about like journal prompts, and I think just like my journey with well-being and like I guess finding myself. And I really don't have a lot of followers at all, like at all. And people that I might have known in the past, or people that I just have no idea who they were sending me really kind messages saying like, thank you so much, like this is really, really helpful. And I think the reason for that is when someone is being so vulnerable and like such an open book, I think it's difficult for people not to be able to relate to you. And I think obviously everyone is living their own individual separate lives, but I think every single one of us has so many similar experiences. Like obviously they're probably all at different levels, and yeah, again, everyone is different, but feelings like, I guess, growing up and becoming a woman and like figuring out how to navigate your 20s and like and dealing with heartbreak and like, you know, going into relationships, coming out of relationships. So yeah, there's so much to relate about, and I think it is really refreshing when you can either listen to someone talking about this stuff, because I know for me it like really relaxes me and I'm like, okay, I'm not alone, I'm not like crazy, I'm not going through these like phases of life alone. But I think it's also really nice if you do, or if you have the opportunity to talk to someone about it. And I've got a select group of friends anyway. I don't have a lot, but I definitely have a couple of friends that I feel my most like open with, and I think they are probably the type that are quite similar to me. And it is just such a lovely feeling when you can kind of like let all your feelings like out on the table and just have like a back and forth conversation about like literally being a human. I think like a lot of people would have seen this quote on, I think it was on TikTok or Instagram, someone just posting a video being like, you know, be kind to your mom, it's her first time living this life too, or like, you know, like doing life too. And it's such a deep and crazy feeling and thought that like, you know, we're obviously all doing this for the first time, and I would say final time. So I think, yeah, you just kind of have to make the most of it. And I think going back to like, you know, I think accepting like whatever scenarios that you're in the moment, I think it might not be ideal, but I think regardless of like what you're doing and whether you want to focus on like your personal hobbies or your career or like you're studying, I think regardless of like what stage you're at, I think like you have to kind of make the best of whatever situation you're in. Like whether you're living in your parents' house or you're living in a university house full of like 10 other girls, or you're living alone and you can't really afford your rent, or you might be feeling really lonely. I think there's always going to be a reason to complain and to like, I guess, make excuses as to why you shouldn't do something or why something isn't the right moment, but it always is. I think there's always a way around it, and this is as much me telling you this advice, but I know that I need to take it as well, because I think I can be a little bit of a perfectionist and I definitely want things to be like a certain vibe. I want to be like in a certain mood, and yeah, I guess like you question so much, which is just, yeah, it can be so mind-boggling. But I think what I always try and do is just like strip it all back and like look at the basics in terms of like where my head is right now is kind of like my life. Like all of it in one go is just a little bit up in the air at the minute, and like it's not a bad thing at all. It just means that I'm looking at my career and that is basically having a complete change. So I'm going through a phase of, yeah, gonna be like pretty much doing my own thing for a little while and not actually being employed by anyone, and just navigating that. And I think I'm like really in the mood to like try different things. I want a career and I want to be doing something that is much more creative, and it was a really, really, really scary thing to kind of come to terms with, like knowing that like a certain career or whatever you were doing doesn't make you happy. But I think no matter what age you are, like there is nothing that should stop you from making these big bold decisions in life, because like there's always going to be time. And I think back to the point, like this is me kind of like having to accept being like quite uncomfortable for a little bit of time, because I know that I'm not going to have the same luxuries as I would have before, and I'm gonna have to constantly be pushing myself, and I think be a bit more like consistent and resilient with like yeah, with the work that I'm doing and like my routine day to day, it's an exciting feeling. It's also really scary. So yeah, being back at home and being back where I probably had these feelings like 4 or 5 years ago, it's, yeah, like kind of like full circle. So it's interesting because I'm so inspired and so motivated and I'm so ready for a change. And another thing that I'm also like actively doing so much more now is reading, and it really wasn't ever anything that I did before like 2023. My birthday last year, I got a book for the first time and I went to a cafe and I read. And I think last year I probably read about 10 books, which like obviously in the grand scheme of things isn't a lot. But for someone that like never read, it has like really opened my mind. And I think also it's like definitely helped my vocabulary a little bit, because I'm definitely someone that can be quite self-conscious in terms of like my words and my phrases. So I think it's like really helped because I'm like obviously reading words that I might not have like heard before. Yeah, it's like, it's really weird to explain, but I think that's definitely made me, yeah, I think be like definitely a bit more in the moment as well. Is there any other ways that we can be more present? I think in general it's just kind of acknowledging the feeling that you need to be more grateful for, you know, the present moment, and I guess like not wishing away like, you know, your years, or like, you know, waiting for summer or waiting for Friday, or like, you know, waiting until like, you know, you get paid so you can get this like item off your list. And I think like inevitably like we're never gonna not do that, because I know that like when I'm excited for something, like that's such a fun feeling. So yeah, I don't think that's ever gonna happen, but I think I am actively trying to like as much and just be like, oh wow, this is really pretty. And I think trying to open my mind to like just like seeing beauty in like more things. Well, I've been sitting here for like 10 minutes and I'm like sitting on my legs and they feel like they're gonna fall off now. But yeah, I would honestly love to know what you guys think and like how you're feeling in this current moment, because I guess it's like January. It's almost like a funny month and a funny time of year, because I think I'm always so excited when it's January or the beginning of January, because it's like a new year and everyone sets their, you know, intentions and like makes their vision boards, and I love that so much. But then I think when it gets to like maybe like the end of January, you're kind of like, oh God, maybe it's just me, but it would be cute to know how you guys are feeling and, you know, what kind of like situations you're going through at the minute. Like I can obviously kind of dive into my life in much more detail if that's something that you're interested in, but I don't want to bore people that don't really care, to be honest with you. So love you guys so much. I hope that you're having a really, really great week and are feeling nice and like refreshed and everything. Yeah, we'll catch you next week. I am going to be posting consistently now, because this is going to be my job. So yeah, so much love, and we will see you in next week's video.